Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. So, quick question. Have you ever traveled somewhere new and, just completely ignored a local superstition? Maybe kind of laughed it off as just some old wives' tale? Well, today we are diving deep into a seriously chilling piece of regional folklore that proves exactly why doing that is a terrible idea. We're looking at the legend of the Nishi. It's honestly a masterclass in atmospheric horror that completely blurs the line between myth and a terrifying reality. Let's get right into it.
Picture this. You're standing in a dilapidated, seemingly abandoned hut. It's the dead of night, and you are deep within a silent, pitch-black forest. A young man named Mahir is desperately searching for his missing sister, Rashmi. He spots a flickering light, right? So he enters this hut, and he finds a mysterious, veiled woman cooking meat over an old stove. And then, out of nowhere, she just casually says this, "I brought a half-burnt corpse from the cremation ground. Come, eat." Talk about a heart-stopping cold open. It just plunges us right into the high-stakes horror of this whole situation.
Okay, let's dive into exactly what's happening here. Mihir went into this empty hut, just looking for refuge and some answers. First, he hears this really eerie, echoing voice offering him water, but then the sensory details kick in. He steps out back to wash up, and bam, he is hit by this overwhelming, just totally gag-inducing stench of rotting flesh. He looks up, vultures are circling. He looks down, and he discovers dismembered human remains and blood just soaking into the earth. When he confronts the woman inside, the horrifying truth drops. She's no hermit. She is a Pishachini, a literal, monstrous, flesh-eating ghoul. It's an absolutely gruesome realization for Mihir, who, remember, is already out of his mind worried for his sister.
Section 1. The Nishi Daak. The Rules of the Cursed Forest.
So, as terrifying as a flesh-eating Pishachini is, and trust me, that's bad, she actually isn't the apex predator here. Not even close. The real terror haunting the Danapur village forest is the Nishi Daak. A local bus conductor actually gave our protagonists a very explicit warning about it. See, the Nishi Daak is a supernatural entity, but it has a very specific, incredibly deadly set of rules. First, it targets outsiders, almost always after dusk. Second, it perfectly mimics the voice of someone you deeply love and trust. And third, it always calls out to you from behind. The absolute golden rule of this folklore: if you hear that voice and you turn around to look, that's it. You belong to the Nishi Daak, and you are never coming back.
But here is where this whole thing gets fascinatingly twisted. You gotta wonder, why on earth is this Pishachini living safely right smack in the middle of the Nishi Daak's territory? Well, she actually tells me here that she survives thanks to this incredibly dark loophole. The Nishi Daak, for all its terrifying power, is completely repelled by the stench of human flesh, so the Pishachini's gruesome diet of half-burnt corpses acts as like a macabre demon repellent. It establishes this really twisted logic for this world. Basically, to survive the monster of the forest, you literally have to surround yourself with the stench of death. Crazy, right?
Section 2, Superstition versus Reality, the Cost of Ignorance.
And this brilliantly illustrates how we even got here. Like, how does a young guy from the city end up in a ghoul's hut surrounded by corpses? Well, we're seeing that classic, tragic clash between modern arrogance and ancient wisdom. On one hand, you've got our urban youth, Mihir and Rashmi. When they get warned about the Nishi Daak on their bus ride, they literally laugh it off. They compare it to cheesy horror tropes on TV. They're confident, cynical, and just completely dismissive of the whole thing. But on the other hand, you have the rural wisdom, the bus conductor, and the sibling's uncle. They truly understand the deadly reality of their environment. They respect the local traditions, they absolutely do not venture out after dusk, and they try so hard to warn the kids. It perfectly highlights the fatal arrogance of underestimating local rural myths.
Which brings us directly to the warning they were given. The conductor looked right at them and said, if someone calls out from behind in a loved one's voice, do not turn around. It's such a chilling, specific instruction. That is the kind of warning that carries the weight of countless victims behind it, you know? These myths don't just stick around to spook kids. They're survival guides disguised as cautionary tales. But as we all know, human arrogance usually speaks a whole lot louder than caution. And as a viewer, the sheer tension comes from just waiting to see exactly how and when they are going to mess this up.
Section 3. A Fatal Mistake. The Domino Effect of Arrogance.
Now, what's really interesting here is how disaster actually strikes. It's really just one huge bad choice, right? It's usually a domino effect of totally ignored warnings. let's trace Rashmi's exact path into danger. Day 1, they arrive, and they actually barely avoid the Nishi Daak on their first night only because their uncle intervenes. But by day 2, the arrogance is right back. The uncle even gives them a Raksha Kavach, a protective amulet, because he knows they don't get the spiritual boundaries of the village. But here's the kicker. As Rashmi is getting ready to sneak out for a bike ride to watch the sunset, the amulet unclasps. It falls to the floor, completely unnoticed. She leaves it behind. Then, she heads out alone in the late afternoon, loses track of time admiring the view, and suddenly, dusk falls. The sun is gone, her protection is sitting on her bedroom floor, and she is totally alone in a cursed forest. The trap is literally perfectly set.
Section 4. Trapped by the illusion. The folklore comes alive.
Okay, so the sun has officially set, and Rashmi's nice little scenic bike ride, it's about to turn into an absolute nightmare as this folklore starts to physically manifest around her. She's pedaling back through the encroaching dark, and the very first sign that something is terribly, terribly wrong is actually physical. Her bicycle suddenly becomes unbearably heavy. She's pushing with all her might, but it feels like she's dragging this massive, impossible weight. It is such a brilliant way to build dread, because the supernatural threat isn't just some spooky voice yet, it's actively, physically grounding her and cutting off her escape.
And then comes the auditory terror. Clear as day, a woman's laughter echoes directly from the empty back seat of her bicycle. Just imagine that for a second. The tension spikes instantly. Rashmi is in an absolute state of sheer panic, and in that moment, she breaks the one cardinal rule. She turns around. She catches a glimpse of a floating dupatta in the dark, loses her balance, and completely crashes her bike.
So now she's bruised, she's terrified, she's sitting there on the ground, and she hears her name. The voice says, "Rashmi, I came looking for you." And this entity finally steps right out of the shadows. But here's the thing, it doesn't look like a monster at all. It looks and sounds exactly like her cousin, Sheetal. And that is so insidious, it literally weaponizes a person's deepest affections. The Nishi Daak flawlessly mimics someone Rashmi loves and trusts to exploit her fear and get her to completely lower her defenses.
So the crucial point here is watching all these terrifying red flags stacking up. Flags that a panicked Rashmi is just completely blind to right now. First, a voice calls from the dark. Second, Sheetal just conveniently appears out of nowhere in the middle of a dangerous, pitch-black forest. Third, instead of helping her back to the safety of the village, this Sheetal starts leading Rashmi deeper and deeper into the dense jungle. And the absolute most chilling detail of all, when Rashmi finally speaks up and points out they're going the wrong way, the entity just coldly tells her to keep quiet and keep walking. The illusion is working flawlessly.
Which leaves us with this final, genuinely haunting question. As these two disappear into the blackness of the trees, is there any chance that is actually her cousin Sheetal, or has the Nishi Daak successfully claimed its prey? I mean, think about it. Her protective amulet is sitting on a bedroom floor miles away, and her brother Mihir is currently trapped in a hut with a flesh-eating ghoul. The odds are terrifyingly slim. And really, that is the devastating power of the Nishi Daak folklore. It completely proves why these stories endure as survival mechanisms. It takes your own love, your trust, and your arrogance and turns them into the very weapons that destroy you. So what do you think happens next? Keep this legend in the back of your mind the next time you travel somewhere new and find yourself alone in the woods at dusk. And whatever you do, if you hear your name called from behind, do not look back.